sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. If this is your second time or multiple time joining us, welcome back to My Sister's a Therapist, and we're glad to have you. My name is Virginia Jones. I'm a stand-up comedian, but the podcast is named this because I have a sister, and she is a therapist.
Hi, I'm Laura Ryan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. My main credit is sister to punny philosopher Virginia Jones.
Laura, on this show, we take turns bringing the topic. This week it is my turn, and I'm going to bring a topic that has been relevant in my life and my space recently, and that is grief and loss.
Full of fun today. I love that.
I am.
I love that for us.
So I love being 50 is thing one, and I'm 52 now. I love the perspective I have on life, and all of my life experiences have brought me to this point. But being 50 means your friends start dropping dead, especially your male friends, and especially your male friends who have led a certain kind of lifestyle just start dropping dead with no warning. Sometimes it happens fast and thick, and you're just processing the last one and the next one happens.
We just found out about another one about 2 seconds ago.
Yeah.
So.
And also loss of relationships. I have some friends who are processing the end of their marriage. It feels like a lot. And I thought we could talk about grief and good advice and ways to process and how to get through it. Fun facts about men from 45 to 64. Heart disease is consistently a major cause of death. We have a friend we've lost recently. We actually don't know how he went. He was just gone, and they thought, well, it could be heart disease. He could have fallen. It was not self-inflicted. Accidents, unintentional injuries, a significant contributor to mortality. This is because men are dumb Fs, and they are not paying attention, or they are being hyper masculine and doing dumb stuff.
Right. They actively engage in riskier behaviors.
Chronic liver disease and cirrhosis is a notable cause of death in this range. Other significant causes are stroke, diabetes, suicide, chronic liver disease. Between 2017 and 2020, this is COVID as well. In 2017, the rate was 898 guys per 100,000 white guys in this age range. And then that went up to 1,000 in 2020. A really big jump.
That was in America?
Yes, in the US only. Life is loss, and loving somebody means that one day you're going to lose that person. And that's just the cost. When you have a pet and that pet passes, you have to acknowledge this is the exchange that I've paid. I bought this ticket and I took the ride, and now I have to suffer this grief.
Well, this is why I don't have any pets anymore.
Right. Why I haven't had a pet in a while, because losing them is so painful. But if you choose to give yourself in relationships and friendships to members of your community, that means one day you're going to lose that person.
We talked about in another episode with Helen Fisher, where she did brain scans of people at the beginning of a relationship and then at the end. The thing that's so hard about grief, especially when somebody dies, is that the feeling, the intensity of love that you had for them is now the intensity of the grief that you're experiencing. So it's so overwhelming.
Grief is something that everyone is going to experience. It's the part of my life where if someone dies, it's not because there was a train accident. It's not because they took their own life or because necessarily they overdosed on drugs. People are just dying because they die.
It's not because there's been some sort of tragedy. It's not something that's going to be in the newspaper. It's just going to be something that occurred.
One weird thing about grief, because human emotions are weird and they don't always make sense and they don't have to. But one weird thing that I've observed is that people grieve. I mean, it's a cliche. People grieve in different ways, but boy, oh boy.
They are real different.
They're real different.
That's what I experienced at the memorial. We are all doing this really differently.
When our dad died, I talked to you about it, and I talked to my partner at the time, but I really didn't talk to anybody else because I would cry and I would let them in on stuff that was more than they needed to take on, probably. But then a friend of mine who's also a comedian, her dad died, and it was her whole social media identity for like a month. Mm-hmm. And I had feelings about it, but I had to remind myself, this is how she's doing it. And her way of doing it is just as valid as mine.
She's an auditory processor, most likely.
So talking about it and getting it out there is how she's processing. I wanted to talk this episode a little bit about the weirdness of grief and some hot tips on doing it, why it's so hard. And there's going to be crossover in a lot of episodes because grief is a huge part of life and loss is a huge part of life. And we've touched on it many, many times. But this time I thought it would be great to just do a whole episode about grief. One of the most recent ones, it's especially weird because this person died and then people started asking each other, how did he die? And the fact is that nobody knows. It's something I question, especially if the person is an acquaintance. If you are a family member, if you are very intimate, if you are in the inner circle, of course you want to know how someone died. It feels like a grimy part of human nature that wants to know exactly how it went.
It's funny to me because I feel the opposite about it. Why is it a secret? Why don't we tell people? I know which friends have been vaginally born. Why is there so much mystery and shrouding around death?
I think that certain kinds of death, there's some shame around. I think that if someone died rescuing nuns from a motorcycle gang, I think everybody would know. But if someone died struggling with addiction, struggling with depression, I think that's less likely to become public. Because of my experience with comedians, I assume suicide or drug addiction. Those are my top two that I just go to. And I have to remember that that's not the case for the general pop. But I've talked to a couple friends about why it's important that we know. What I think is we want to know because we want to be able to justify that that one happened to us. Say someone dies of cancer and it's maybe lung cancer. And then the first question is, well, did they smoke? And if they did, you can feel a sense of relief because you're like, well, I don't smoke, so I won't die of cancer. You are going to die though. Like it's going to be something.
It's going to be on the toilet, probably. That's statistically the most likely. I think that's part of it. But I think the other aspect of that is the idea that it doesn't make sense a lot of the time. And I need the puzzle pieces to fit together. Okay, 50-year-old man didn't seem to have a drug problem, but why is he dead? I just want to understand.
I want to have context to put this.
So that I can go, okay, that's what happened to Jerry. Right. That's why Jerry is dead. Jerry was saving a nun from a biker gang. And so then I can just, in my mind, put it on a shelf of, if I said I've stopped working at that job. So then you're just going to spend the rest of your life just going, oh, well, she lost that job. We know.
Or she left that job.
She may have left. She may have quit. But details are important.
I think the modern world, death is just starting to freak us out more and more because in an Amazon delivery world, parts of life that are unknown, that you do not have control over, are just freaking us out more and more. You don't know the moment you're going to die for the most part. You don't know the moment someone is going to be born. As technology takes over more and more of our life, I think that nature is getting stranger to us.
Yeah, we're very separated from it. And I think until recently, I did really think I was going to live forever. I think I just thought one day I'm going to disappear in a puff of smoke and that'll be it.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool. If I can arrange that, I would love to do that. We have really small brains in here and we really don't know a lot of things. I don't think the human mind does well with mystery.
Yeah, we did see a lot of different types of grief at that memorial. One thing that I really appreciated about the memorial, not only that it was this huge gathering of friends and people I hadn't seen in a great deal of time and people who could touch base about this person we'd lost. We lost him in August and the memorial happened the following March. By the time we got together, it was not quite so raw. Like it was still very sad. And especially being with other people, I was very moved by a lot of it, but it wasn't just at the very top.
I think it would have been really hard to sit through all of that right after he'd passed. Well, I think that's another reason why we don't want to imagine our death. I can't imagine a day where I'm not waking up and moving around and living my life because that's all I've got so far.
Right. I've had this experience. I haven't experienced anything else. It's like the part of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead by Tom Stoppard. Death is like being alive in a box. You're not alive in the box. You're dead in a box. And that makes all the difference. You're not knocking on the lid of the box saying, let me out. You're not there.
Right.
I think the only thing that I've experienced that's like it is when you go through general anesthesia for surgery and you're just not present. Your consciousness is gone. It's more than sleep. I remember I had a minor surgery on my hand. I remembered being put under and then I woke up and my first thought was, crud, I have to have that hand surgery. And then I held up my hand, which was heavily bandaged and had clearly been through something. And it was a strange experience to know that it had happened without me.
I literally had nothing to do with it. And I wasn't involved even a little.
I didn't have to do anything. I paid doctors to do it.
I wish that could have been my birth experience. That would have been better.
There's a lot of strange behaviors that come out around death, and it feels like star effing behavior. They want to demonstrate how close they were to the person. I have judgment around that, but that's just their grief.
Also, it's that analogy that we used in another episode with the ball in the jar. When the jar is small, all I can think about is this person. It's bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. So I'm remembering with this memorial, I was having all these weird memories of meals that we'd had together and conversations that we had and dumb adventures that we'd experienced. I think that we all are doing that. We're like, oh yeah, I remember this too. I remember that about him. I remember this. Because I think when someone's dead, the relationship does feel more important than when they're alive.
And the conversation we were having at that thing was, I wish we'd done this when he was alive. Why would we? We're not going to.
That's what I said. Because I thought, wouldn't it be great if he could be here and see how much love people had for him and how impressive he was as a human?
And that is one of the benefits, the gifts of a memorial gathering. A lot of memories that I forgotten were unlocked because
Right.
other people had different memories and we could all compare notes. And that's a gift. Another thing that I find odd about death is the woulda, shoulda, coulda that people do. A lot of people were like, I wish I had reached out to him more. And now I'm having it again. People are like, oh, I was supposed to go visit him. I should have done this. I should have done that. And I have to remember that that's just how they're processing it. In the case of the first person, there was nothing else anybody could have done. Everybody had done everything that it was in their power to do to keep him healthy.
I don't think anyone could have made him healthy. He was
Right.
not healthy. He was living an incredibly destructive lifestyle.
The most recent person, my first thought was, well, crap, I was supposed to see him in January. I was in his town. You make plans ahead of the date. And then when the time comes, the person starts getting slippy on you, just kind of slipping this way and that. And he just
Yeah.
kind of got slippy. There came a moment where if I had really put my feet down and said, no, tell me when I can see you, make a plan with me, I think he would have done it. But I wanted to be cool. Yeah, okay. I'll see you next time. I'm going to be back.
You thought you had forever. That's the hardest part of grief. I think people get really hung up on these last experiences, these last phone calls. I remember with the memorial friend, he sent us an email to the show. We read it on one of the podcast episodes. He said, we should have a phone call. When he said that in the email, I thought, I don't want to have a phone call with you because you're such a terrible drug addict that's going to make me really depressed and I'm going to feel really sad. And then when he passed, I thought, well, crap, maybe I should have made a phone call. These final things don't actually matter. It's just because they're the end that they matter.
The last one. Right.
It's the same with when an establishment closes. You go, I should have gone there a whole bunch more because I think we just can't deal well with the finality of things.
I had the same experience with our friend. I had just moved back to the town in which he lived. And so we'd started talking about making plans. I was not super quick with it because most of our conversations have gone in a certain pattern.
Right.
And I found that pattern frustrating and depressing. And so, I want to do it. We'll do it. But then we did not.
And then he was gone.
Now, I will say with the person I recently lost, I was out of the country when I heard. And that's really weird. And it's hard to explain why that's weird because he doesn't live in my town. Being that far away and having everybody here experiencing this without me, I felt very distant and very, very strange. And my partner was kind enough to let me know the news as I was leaving my sister's house in London. So I'd just been playing with little boys and watching her eat ice cream cake, just having a really nice time. Wholesome family time with two very special little boys and a very cute neighbor. It really hit me like a ton of bricks. And my first response was denial. And I thought, no, this is not. And I said, just so you know, I half thought that I was going to get a text back. I'm like, just so you know, people are saying that you're dead.
Okay.
And I think part of it was that I was out of town and it felt like I didn't know where to put it.
Well, you felt really removed from everything, right?
Right. But I did look at our most recent texts. He talked to me about Melissa Villaseñor's comedy special and how much he enjoyed it. And he realized that she is a Love and Rockets graphic novel character in real life, which is absolutely true. My last text to him, I told him I loved him. So this person knew how I cared about him.
I was watching a fictional grief experience. There's a really good show called Paradise. If you haven't seen it, you should. But this man is murdered. And then on the night of his murder, his son was supposed to have dinner with him because they had some things to discuss. And the son, he said his last interaction with his dad was to tell him to F off.
And your last interaction with your dad was he wanted to talk to you about stuff. And you said, Dad, I'm going to see you tomorrow.
I did say I love you. I remember it was Halloween. He wanted to tell me every costume of every child that had knocked on his door. Yeah. And he wanted to tell me about the costumes that the dogs were wearing. And although it was riveting, I was at the checkout at Whole Foods.
This is the kind of conversation I had with this person dozens of times.
Right.
Times.
But it's because it was the last one that it has meaning, because I didn't know that I was never going to talk to him again.
Another phenomenon that I was talking with people about last night is when you lose somebody, you start seeing them, you start seeing their doppels. I remember we had a funny one with Dad where the man at the angle that he was standing and the angle that his face was, it was the spitting image of our father. I took a picture and sent it to you and Emily and said, well, that's not Dad. He's just at Costco. He just wants to get some bargains. When the man moved again, I saw a different angle on his face and it didn't look like that at all. It's interesting how your brain, as the ball is bouncing around in the jar, your brain will look for them and try to find them. A Where's Waldo of grief.
It's pattern recognition. I was really proud of myself. Speaking of that same man, I was at the airport last night and I was enjoying a Starbucks wrap.
Enjoying is a strong word, isn't it?
It is strong. It was warm. They heated it up.
Food,
So that was it was food. Over the sound system came the song The Next Time I Fall in Love with Peter Cetera and Amy Grant.
I'll know better what to do. I was traveling last week. I heard that song in a freaking airport.
I haven't heard that song since I was in Dad's car. And I was really proud of myself because I didn't cry.
Way to go.
It's because the ball has shrunk.
Yeah, the ball has shrunk or the jar is bigger, so he's not a huge part of your day-to-day thoughts. We think about him a lot. We talk about him every week on this podcast.
Right.
It's not the biggest part.
And I have done a lot of emotional processing so that I can hear Peter Cetera and Amy Grant and not feel verklempt about it. I did kind of laugh. Why was this ever a song? Why don't you just fall in love with me now? Why are you waiting until the next time you fall in love with someone for it to be me? Why don't you just do it this time?
The way I hear the song, he's saying that next time I'm going to do better. Or as he's entering a relationship, he says, it'll be with you.
It'll be with you.
But I think that's happening now.
What I was thinking is he's talking to some woman saying, hey, I think the next time I fall in love, it's actually going to be you. It's not going to be this broad that I'm currently with.
And that's why I think that people in their first relationship who get married are doing it really badly. You don't know anything. There's no way you're treating that person well. I think that you should break up with that person by principle.
Immediately.
I
always feel bad for people who are married to their high school sweethearts. You guys have been awful to each other.
So Peter Cetera, the lyrics are, love is like a road that never ends, how it leads me back again to heartache. It's true. I'll never understand. Darling, I put my heart up on a shelf till the moment was right. And I tell myself, next time I fall in love, I'll know better what to do. And then it'll be with you. So he's saying, I've taken myself out of the game. I wanted to wait until it was right. And then you're right. And then I'm going to do it.
That's one interpretation. Mine makes a lot more sense.
No, it doesn't.
And is a lot more emotionally charged.
You're right. You're right. Just
I'm looking at my options and thinking,
go back in your house and wait, and I'll tell you when I'm ready to be in love with you.
I think maybe later, maybe a few years, I'll fall in love with you.
And guys, if someone tells you that, just move on.
Just run, because that's not it.
Oh
we wanted to.
I thought we would tell some other weird grief stories and just how different people deal with it. I was with someone whose mother was very sick. It was a really weird time because I kept saying, you should go home. He was in total denial that he was going to lose her because she was a very important part of his life. It was a very close relationship that I envied in many ways. He had a family member call and say, now is the time. And she passed while he was making his way to her. That trip was for him. It's not for her. She knows that he loves her. It doesn't change anything about her experience that he wasn't there at her bed. He really was strange after that. He had inherited her car and he needed to clean her house out. And he drove across country and brought home a car full of old lady stuff, pills and scissors and trash cans.
So like everything. Was there a kitchen sink in the car?
If he could have put it in there, he would have. I tried to be really gentle with him. I knew this was his grief, but I don't need to take old lady pills. I don't need to use an old lady paper shredder.
To me, that also says, I don't want to deal with this.
Right.
I'm just going to put it all in boxes and get it out of the house. I don't have the capacity to deal with this right now. So I'm just going to box everything. I'm going to bring her nail scissors because I'm just bringing everything.
I just don't know.
Right.
I think that's a very smart and cogent way to think about it.
You know, you're talking about the feeling like you were much closer to that person than you actually were kind of experience. My first boyfriend, his mother had meant a lot to me over the years. And I think we've talked about her on the podcast. I remember when I found out about her passing, it was a year after it had happened because he and I are not in regular contact. But she meant a lot to me. Maybe she and I haven't been talking a lot lately, but she has such an important role in my life. And the fact that I've just been walking around not knowing she passed
Feels weird.
it was weird. And I really grieved a lot for that. I was really upset. And I was actually really shocked how upset I was because I haven't seen her since I was in my late 20s, which many listeners might say, well, that was pretty recently, wasn't it?
That was just a few days ago.
But listener, beware. I am actually a little bit older than that. So it's been a minute. I was really surprised by how upset I was about this woman's passing because it had been so long.
Emotions are not logical. Brains are weird. Hearts are weird. People are weird. And I've been caught off guard with people who I hadn't seen in many years, or people who I didn't have that much of an interaction with, but had a few key experiences with. And I've also been surprised at how hard it was.
And with this woman, because of the way my dad passed, I have this rule of if I think about you, I'm going to let you know immediately. We were friends on Facebook and I just decided I'm just going to tell her. I sent her this email describing everything that she meant to me and how important she was in my life. And I'm really glad that I did. After that, she said, well, we should spend some time together. I'd love to see you again. And she wanted to meet my son. And I was going to do it. And time got away from me and I didn't get to, but I thought there will always be another time. And then there wasn't. So that was also really hard.
One of my Facebook interactions with someone who just wrote a long post about his neurodivergence and how it acts out is that he offends people 95% of the time. But when he finds that 5% that get him, they really get him.
That sweet spot.
This person we lost, we had a big friend group and he was a big part of it. And even though he had moved away, he told me most of his good friendships were in Portland still. I said something to the effect of, I'm so sorry for all of us. And this one guy said, well, I'm most sorry for dead guy. And I thought, that's one thing I don't have to worry about now. Worrying about his well-being, worrying about his mental health. That's the thing I don't have to worry about. And then, Laura, I thought about picking a fight with this person on the internet. And then I thought, no,
that was a good move. I like that.
I'm not going to.
That was the right choice. Try not to get in fights with people when you're grieving. Speaking of weird grief stories, this was another one. It was so strange. So I worked at a hypnosis center when I first started my career many, many moons ago. I don't even know when this was. This was a few years back. I was at my gym on the treadmill and I ran into an ex-girlfriend of a former coworker. So it was a very estranged relationship. And I was talking to her about something and she said, oh, I haven't seen you since the Christmas party X year or whatever. And I said, oh yeah, I remember I did a duet to the song Imagine with my coworker, Karuna Ananda. I was sometimes wonder, she was an older lady, like I wonder what became of her. And this woman said, oh, she's dead. So now I'm standing on a treadmill in the middle of my gym crying about a coworker. When you know there's nothing that can be done, it's over, done, kaput. It's overwhelming.
And I did have the experience that you had where I lost a couple people. And I told some of my close friends, I've never told you this before, but I love you. And I want you to know it because tomorrow is not guaranteed. Right. And I just want you to know. And that's a weird thing to tell platonic friends. I don't think it should be weird, but especially men are very weird around it. But I'm like, you're just going to have to take this on and know it, that I love you. The end.
Deal with it. Actually, I have a friend who she was in we'll call it a dark period of her life. And she was saying, I just feel like if I died, I don't even know what people would say about me at my funeral. I wrote my speech and I sent it to her. Nice. So I was like, hey, you're not going to have to wonder what I'm going to say. Because now you know, here it is. And P.S. when you do die, I'm going to have it queued up and ready to go.
Thanks for letting me pre-write it.
I think part of being a moody goth chick in the past has made me, I'm not afraid of talking about you passing away. It's a normal part of life. And although it's really sad, it's not scary.
Well, it is strange how people treat it like it's one extremely unique. And it's almost rude to say, we're all going to die.
Right.
People do not like to talk about it or think about it. To make sure you're living the life you want to live, you have to remember that you're going to die. Otherwise, you're going to waste your time doing stuff that you don't care about.
I mean, you might still do that. There's a book by Ben Elton that I really enjoyed, and it was about basically World War II. And there was a principal character who was a low-ranking military person during World War II. He said, because of the way life was shaking out, he said, I never turned down a drink, a dame, or a dance. And that's how I try to live.
Mhm.
If somebody says, let's go on this vacation, I say, oh, I don't have the money. I'm going to do it anyway because I don't know what's coming. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'm going to have this opportunity again. And so thanks, Ben Elton.
I was talking to a friend about this last night, and I said, this is one of the gifts of being 50. And this is kind of the opposite side of the same coin. If someone asks me to do something that I do not want to do, I say no, because life is finite. I'm sorry, I cannot spend 2 hours at your pizza stone party because I'm going to die someday.
But see,
And-
I am going to go to that because I don't know if I'm going to ever see you again. And I'll know
and
that
whether or not you'll need a pizza stone.
I did show up at the pizza stone party.
Here's some hot tips from the internet about grief. Acknowledge your emotions. Grief is weird. You can feel confused. You can feel angry. You can feel guilt. You can feel numb. You can think, I should be feeling more. And you will feel it when it is time to feel it. Try to process those emotions without judgment, and muscling through it is just going to make it longer. Understand that the process takes time. This is another thing that's very hard for humans. I want to grieve in the next 45 minutes. Grief is sneaky, and you can feel like you're over it, mostly over it. And then one day you'll hear a song by Peter Cetera and Amy Grant, and it'll have you crying in an airport. And you don't know. You have to be patient with yourself. Don't compare your grief. And this is something that I do a lot because I think that the way I do it is correct. And the way everyone does it is very strange.
I remember running into one of your friends at the memorial, and I remember thinking, wow, she's really not doing grief well. She's doing a lot of suppressing and a lot of denying. And then she's just exploding at different times because even though he passed away many months ago, she hasn't processed any of it.
Right. It's all right there. Like anything else, avoid comparing your experience to others. I like this advice. Connect with others. And that's, I think, what the memorial is really for. It's not for the person who's gone. It's for the people who remain, which is what I was going to get in a fight on the internet about. If you're really having trouble, or if this is a spouse or a close family member, you might consider going to therapy, finding a support group.
A grief and loss group is a good idea.
And then taking care of yourself. Grief can hit you like a ton of bricks. Try to sleep enough. Try to eat good foods, things that are going to power your body.
Try to bathe regularly.
And try to establish a routine. Our tiny little brains want to do a schedule. Try to eat meals consistently. Try to keep on a regular sleep schedule. And then just be very patient with yourself. Never judge yourself for how much you're feeling, how much you're not feeling, how long it's taking. You just have to let it be what it is. If you don't feel like you're feeling enough, it doesn't have anything to do with your love for that person.
Mhm.
There's no reason to force it. Also, very practical advice. Avoid making major decisions.
Yeah.
Do not get a tattoo of the person.
Don't move to Hawaii.
Don't marry someone you just met because they really get you. Your brain is not in a good place. You're going to do stuff that you're going to regret. Give yourself time during holidays and special occasions, things that remind you of the person. Know that that's going to be challenging. Their first birthday, what might have been your anniversary. Give yourself space and give yourself grace. And that's what I'm going to put on my bumper sticker.
If you know someone who is grieving, because I was a goth in college, I took death and dying as a course. One of my biggest takeaways from that was if you speak to those bereaved, they'll always tell you the funeral is important. We have this rush of people and planning and all of that. When the funeral's over and all the important things have been taken care of, then they're just alone with their grief. Really months or even years after, we need to keep checking in on people, making sure that they're okay. And I remember I had a friend whose mother passed really surprisingly in a way that was not expected. And I remember I wrote him a card and I just said, hey, I have absolutely no idea what you're dealing with, but I love you and I'm so sorry. This is the worst thing that I've ever heard of happening. And I remember he said that it was the only sincere sentiment that he had received around all of it. So I think being sincere is also important.
You make a good point. It's very difficult for us to talk about death. It's hard to know what to say. It feels awkward. It feels bigger than you can talk about. And frequently people will rely on platitudes or something they saw on a card once. Trying to really connect with your own feelings and express that to the person that you're thinking of. I think that's important, even though it's hard to do. In general, and this is about everything, grieving a person, grieving the loss of a job, grieving a relationship, know that a lot of what you're experiencing is you're grieving the past with that thing. you're grieving the present, but most importantly, you're grieving the future. You're grieving the next visit, the next thing, the next trip, and that's not going to come. And that's very hard for your brain.
Because your brain doesn't have the input for that.
Right.
This person has always been around. I remember with Dad, when I wrote my eulogy for him, I went through in Imago, we have a goodbye letter. So I just wrote him a goodbye letter. The format is, what was it like knowing you, being with you? What are the things I'm not going to miss about you? What are the things I am going to miss about you? And what are the dreams that I say goodbye to? I cut out the not going to miss about you because I thought that was insult to injury. I think just having that and reading it and crying. I'm a big fan of when you're grieving, just do it all at the front end, get it out of the way, do all the crying, do all the sad stuff, listen to all the records and just sit in it so that you can give yourself a head start to process through it. Because of course you're always going to be sad. But I think if I hadn't spent the last several years sobbing hysterically in the car every time I heard Peter Cetera, I would still be in it now. The only way out is through.
I was also talking to a friend about the loss of a relationship. And I said, a lot of the discomfort that you're feeling is that you have all these patterns and you have all these habits and you have all these neural pathways. You have to actively form new ones.
You have to let the old ones die, as we talked about in our episode, Brain Hacks.
Yes. So we're revisiting that. Just recognize that this is part of the discomfort you feel. Feeling like you were supposed to be with that person because you're thinking about them or you're missing them. That's not so. It's just what your brain is used to. And your brain wants the thing that was happening to continue to happen.
Right, because we like patterns that are consistent. I remember when my sweet little kitty Greta passed away, for months, I was opening the cabinet door and I really thought she was walking through my legs like she always did. You know, she kind of did this little thing where she'd wrap her tail around my leg and walk while I was in the cabinet. So I kept sensing her there because my brain is so used to her being there. Because when I would open the cabinet, she knew Pounce was in there and she wanted some. It was a pattern in our relationship.
So, Laura, what are some other good advice, things you can give to people who are grieving people or relationships? What are your last thoughts on this?
Well, my final thoughts on this topic are, I think, have a lot of grace with yourself. Allow yourself to be a complete nightmare for a while. And I think really remembering that analogy of the jar with the ball in it. The jar is going to get bigger, the ball is going to get smaller, but it's still going to hit really hard, but it's just going to be less frequently. I think with Dad dying, that was the biggest shock for me, is that years later, I'm still having the same intensity of emotion.
Not as frequent.
Yeah. It never goes away. It just becomes less often.
That grief just becomes part of your life. And maybe that's one of the things that's hard about getting older is you're just taking on more and more grief.
Because you're never going to be over these things. I'm never going to be over getting fired from a job or this person ending a relationship with me. I'm just going to feel less emotional about it. I'm never going to go, oh, that was fine. Because it wasn't fine. Right. Or this person dying, it's not fine. I'm just not going to make my whole life about it anymore. And also being understanding of other people.
Take the same grace that you're applying to yourself and apply it to other people.
And allow them to have the experience that they're having. Because sometimes it doesn't make sense. Oh my gosh, I remember this client I had in the past. And our target was a boyfriend that she'd had many, many years prior. Had passed away in a really upsetting way. And she was still processing it. It didn't make sense to me. That's her deal. So it's not my business.
Right. That's another thing that doesn't make sense about being a person who's just a little meat machine with a brain full of chemicals. As you see what other people do and you're like, they should be done with that by now. Yeah. And they're not though.
So I think it's trusting the process that this person is having their own way of dealing with stuff. And that's got to be okay with everybody. Virginia, what are your final thoughts on this topic?
My final thoughts are, this is something that everybody's going to experience. If you've loved someone, if you've loved something, if you've enjoyed a relationship, you one day are going to lose it or they are going to lose you. And that is what life is. It's not explicitly stated when you enter into a friendship, a relationship, that one day it will end and you will have to deal with that. But it's true. But also feeling deeply when you grieve means that you succeeded in connecting with and loving another person.
Right. Which to me, I think is the whole point of this thing that we're doing.
That's what we're doing.
Every relationship will end in some form or fashion. Every experience we have will end. Our mother's living in an environment with a lot of elderly people. And every week, It
Another
sounds
person
like
who's dropped off.
it
Yeah.
sounds like she's in Auschwitz because we've lost a couple more. They have this process where they put the picture of the person on the piano. If you haven't seen him in a couple days, head over
Check
to
the
the
piano.
piano. Head over to the piano. And she's shocked and awed every time. Well, I saw her at breakfast, but she's 89. So we don't always have another breakfast in us. We got to be okay with that.
There will be a last breakfast. As Warren Zevon said, enjoy every sandwich because you don't know.
Yeah.
So when I have been grieving, I have thought about the lyrics to I Am a Rock by Simon and Garfunkel, which is the song that our dad liked. And when I heard it as a kid, I'm like, well, this is terrible. But when you read the lyrics, I have no need of friendship. Friendship causes pain. It's laughter and it's loving I disdain. I'm a rock. I'm an island. He is just trying to protect himself from pain.
Absolutely.
But he's cutting himself off from joy.
Because you can't have one without the other. He's not going to experience the lowest of lows, but he's also not going to experience the highest of highs.
And that's a way to go about it, I suppose.
Yeah. So, Virginia, if somebody wanted to find out more about your stand-up, how would they go about doing that?
Well, you can find me at my website, www.badinia.com. And that has a calendar that has articles about prominent dates. And it also has a map of everywhere I've ever performed stand-up. You can find me on TikTok at www.badinia.com. Instagram is the same. Laura, where can people find you on the internet should they wish to do so?
Well, if you want to work with me on a professional level and you live in the state of Texas, check me out at lauraryan.org. If you're interested in finding out more about the show, you can find us on Instagram. My sister's a therapist Instagram. I also have a wonderful TikTok account called I Am Laura Ryan. And I have a Red Note account also by the same,
Really branching out.
the same name. If you also want to check out our website, you can just go to mysistersatherapist.com and all of our episodes are there. Also, I want to remind everybody to please tell everyone that you know that you love them and also to listen to our podcast.
A great 1-2 punch of information. If you would like to send us a topic idea, something that you're concerned with or wondering about, you can write us at hello@mysistersatherapist.com. If you would like to propose a job offer, an endorsement deal, a sponsorship of some kind, you can reach out at hireus@mysistersatherapist.com. Laura, this is the part of the show where you will sometimes read something nice someone has said to us, and they can post that either on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or on Amazon Podcasts. Do you have something to share this week?
In fact, I do. This is an Amazon podcast review from Violet.
Nice.
Thanks, Violet, called Therapy You Didn't Know You Needed. If you're looking for something that combines professional advice and expertise with vulnerability and personality, I highly recommend giving My Sister's a Therapist a listen. It's become a staple in my podcast rotation, and it's a gentle reminder to me that we're all in this together. Thank you,
Well
Violet.
said. That's so nice. As we ponder Violet's words,
And the way that we're all going to die.
the way that we are all going to die, knowing that you're going to die, hopefully will make you enjoy life while you have it. And in the profound words of our patron saint, Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn, we can make it, baby.
Me and you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.